Hello everyone and welcome back to Zero Sum Gaming here at the Culture Cache. I'm your host, The Power Trip, as always, and today we've got a special request from Jason T on Patreon. He wants us to cover the epic conclusion to the greatest Batman storyline ever in gaming history, Arkham Knight. Now, as we get into this, let me start off by saying that I am a huge fan of the Arkham games. I've played every single one of them from Arkham Asylum to Arkham Knight with Arkham City and Arkham Origins. And even though Arkham Origins is the only one that was not from the original developers, it too had its very strong highlight points, especially when it comes into the origin of a certain character. I'm not going to spoil if you have not played that game. But I reiterate, huge fan of this game, of this entire storyline. It's absolutely amazing. One of the things I absolutely love about this game in particular is the fact that it does, well, much like the other games, it carries on but adapts that system. The combat system, the detective system, it never 100% changes anything on you. It's not like playing a brand new game. It always feels, when you're playing the Arkham games, like you're just continuing, which is what the game is supposed to do, but you're continuing on with what you had before, and you're just getting new things as you go along with it. Kind of whereas like with Arkham Asylum, you were getting used to, since it was the first game, getting used to the ability to sneak around and do these stealth attacks and use the batarangs and things like that, and these special attacks you develop over time. In Arkham Knight, you have the majority of those, but then you have new attacks and new gadgets and new aspects to the game with the combat, such as in the original game and even in Arkham City and such. It was still very much a solo game. It was just you. As the storyline progresses and you get through into, Arkham City and even a little bit in Arkham Origins, you end up having a little bit of help, but it's never like it is in Arkham Knight. Arkham Knight, you actually get that aspect in combat where you'll be in the midst of fighting, and if you have one of your friends with you, Nightwing or Catwoman, for instance, you can switch to them in mid-combat, and your main character, Batman himself, will go on to do what he's going to do in the fight, but then you're carrying on with Catwoman or Nightwing in the battle itself. Now, given with Arkham City, you did get eventually the ability to switch over to Catwoman for some extra gameplay, but this was definitely a game about Batman, and as you can tell, this is, as it's claimed on here, this is the tale of how the Batman died. And which is absolutely, this intro to the game, by the way, I know I'm not really touching bases, you're watching this, but this intro to the game is absolutely beautifully done. And obviously, as I shouldn't have to say much. This game's been out for a while, but I'm not going to spoil too much in the gameplay, or the gameplay itself I'll probably spoil a good bit, but the story I'm not going to spoil way too much. I'm not going to get into too much depth of it. Obviously, this is after Arkham City. As you can see, the Joker, what has happened to him at the end of Arkham City is carried over into here. We're seeing the remnants of that, and the storyline is absolutely beautifully done too, because it's that thing you never see in books, or I won't say you never see it really in movies, but it's still that thing you don't see touched upon very much of what would happen if Batman was finally rid of the Joker, one way or another, whether or not he killed him, or Joker killed himself, or anything like that. What happens to Batman's world when this happens, when this occurs? And you see that. You see that not only through the villains, but through Batman himself. You see that in the villains. As the story starts, they have banded together because they believe, since they weren't physically actually there, they believe that Batman killed the Joker. And for any of you who's played Arkham City, you know what truly happened. But this is the villain's perspective, and thus they banded together against a bat that they believe now will kill. So the villains are more lethal, they're more brutal, and this is, you always, in video games, you're always wondering, it's like, well, I've fought these guys already in several other games. Arkham Origins, I've obviously beaten up the Penguin. Arkham Asylum, Arkham City, I ended up beating up the Penguin again. Why should I think beating him up again in another game is going to be any different? Well, the battles are harder because of this reason. There's a reason there. Some games will give you that, some games won't. This one does. They're fighting for their life because they think you're going to kill them now. So they banded together under a new leader, a new person that's going to help. And as you can probably tell from the video, is where this is leading with. You got some fear toxin and everything. Their new person that they're banded under is, of course, Scarecrow. You would think some of these villains, I know Batman villains are all about the insanity, the mental unstableness of it all, but seriously, when you have villains that have a little bit more brain to them than that, especially villains like Penguin, who just want to be the greatest mob boss Gotham's ever seen. So he's very intelligent. Not saying Scarecrow's not, but as far as mental instability goes, you went from the Joker, who, well, I'll say this, he wasn't leading the Batman villains, but he was considered the most dangerous of them all, to now they're all falling under Scarecrow, who's not really that far different at this point than what Joker was going down. I mean, Joker was worse, but you're now falling under Joker Light. That's not exactly going to bode well for you at this point. But like I was saying, you see these differences in the hero as well. As you get into it and you start interrogating enemies, trying to find out where Scarecrow is, where some of the other villains are, where things are, and you're interrogating them. Whereas in the old games, you might have kicked them in the gut really hard, punched them really hard, shoved them in, forced their head into a concrete block a little bit. I say a little bit, like like Batman would ever do that, just a little bit. The point is, in this one, right off the bat, one of the first guys you go to interrogate, you break his arm in two. Or at least break his arm pretty bad. The point is, you're breaking bones, and you've got this guy on the ground. You could knock him out. You could just tie him up. No, Batman is just breaking his arm. Needlessly, no other reason there other than this is how much more brutal Batman has gotten. He knows the villain's mindset, but at the same time, once again touching base on Arkham City here, for anyone who has played the game, kind of the after effects of this is Bruce isn't, well, the better term is, while he's never, you could always make the argument that he's never been all there, he's really not all there right now. He's trying to cope with the loss of this villain that, he's felt a pretty close bond here with over time, that this was his rival. He's got a lot of well-known villains. The Riddler gives him a good fight for his money when it comes to brain against brain. And, obviously he has an ex-friendship with Two-Face, but the Joker matched him like nobody else. And so you can see that the Joker's death, what that has caused him just right from the get-go of this game. And you can only imagine by the end of it what he's going to be like, because this is the epic finale to all this. One way or another, this ends tonight. Now, going on into that, let me list off what I feel are some of the biggest pros and cons of this game in general. We'll start off with the pros. They're very easy to list at this point because this game is beautiful. The graphics are amazing. The voice acting is stellar. You have a returning Mark Hamill, a returning Kevin Conroy, and for any of you that played Arkham Origins, if you're a fan of Troy Baker, the way he played the Joker then, which personally I am, he does an excellent rendition of Mark Hamill's Joker. If you've not played Arkham Origins, you need to. But he even returns as a few other characters in here as well. I won't spoil anything. For any of you Troy Baker fans out there, I'll let you see if you can pick out exactly who. And no cheating looking at Wikipedia or Internet Movie Database or any of those. Try and just listen, see if you can pick out the 3 characters I know offhand that he plays in this game. Now, going into the gameplay itself, like I said, this game runs beautifully into just a continuation of taking what you had before and growing it. The villains become harder to beat. You have these giant epic villains that are similar to the Titans in the first game. These big villains that these big guys that carry around these giant Gatling guns, and no longer can you just stun them and then beat the tar out of them. These particular guys, you have to be ready to dodge their attacks because you can't block them. You can't do anything to stop it. You can't stun them. You have to dodge those attacks. So you'll be punching, and then you got to be ready for that trigger to dodge the attack and then go right back into attacking them. Another thing they've added in here is more of the environmental things. You can actually slam people into electrical stations or cause fire extinguishers to go off and distract people or gas up a room in that way. You have returning puzzles of the mechanics with the cameras hooked up to Gatling guns, and now the drone system where it's flying around. Where the game, this is one of the things that really makes me excited, is anyone who loves Metal Gear is going to love this game. The amount of stealth you have to put into getting to breaking down these flying drones and these cameras and their guns just to get to your goal, to sneak around and have to do this. Yes, you could run in and bash someone's head in, but there are so many scenarios in this game where you can't do that. If you try even for an instant to just run past the guns or run past the drones, you will get taken out. Even at 100% armor, you will get taken out. And that's what I love about it, because Batman is the strongest human alive, but he's still human. And it really makes the player have to come up with these great strategies, these great ideas to solve these puzzles. Another aspect I love about this, and this one adds a fresh new take on the battle system too, adding a medic. So you're in the middle of this battle, and in the old games you knew, I got to take out the electric guy first, because if I hit him, I'm going to take damage. So I have to find a way to take him out really quick. Or I have to take out the shield guy, because he can block my attacks and stop my combos. So I can't take out everybody at once, so I need to dodge around and try and take him out first, and then go after everyone. Well, the medic automatically makes it you have to go after this guy. Because if you don't, anyone else you take out, he has the potential to bring right back. And that, in a lot of the fights you get into this game, that is a nightmare scenario. You get into some of these fights where there's like 15 guys, and I'm not kidding, 15, especially on like nightmare mode, and there's 3 medics out there. You're going to be really coming up with some strategy. Now, the plus side is usually a lot of those bigger fights later on in the game, you can see them coming, and you get some extra devices to help you kind of nitpick. You get some stuff that lets you take out their guns or their devices and stuff to help you kind of get a little bit of an edge, but even then, the numbers game plays really hard on you there. With that said, you have the added thing of you have a villain in here with a device that makes it to where they can detect you when you're using detective mode. So it forces you to not be able to use it as much, because if you use it, they're going to see you. Now, I went to the voice acting, the gameplay, the epic storyline. What could possibly be the cons here? Oh, there's not many, but the ones there are big enough to be blaringly obvious. In fact, I'll even go so far as to say that there's only really two big problems with this game that I have, and that's it. The first one, I'm going to save the very obvious one. I know everybody who's played this game out there knows what the biggest one is, so I'm going to save that one for second. The first one is, honestly, this is the easiest. of all the Arkham games. And that kind of disappoints me. When you know this is supposed to be, quote unquote, the last of the Arkham games, you expect it to be the most challenging, most difficult thing you could possibly have thrown at you. And this is the main game that I've played in Nightmare mode, the hardest difficulty you have, and hadn't had almost any problems. Of course I've died. I died on any mode, but I finished Nightmare mode. I got every single one of the Riddler puzzles. I couldn't get half of the Riddler puzzles in Arkham City, and I finished all the Riddler puzzles in this game. Nightmare mode, while it added an edge, and believe me, I love the touch on it. The fact that in normal mode, much like the old games, you had the warning symbol above your head to let you know when to hit the triangle button to dodge or block or anything. But in this game, you could turn on Nightmare mode and it didn't give you that. You'd turn that off. So you had to get your reflexes. That was a nice touch, but it still wasn't enough. And honestly, that kind of actually reminds me of, there is a third problem. Another problem to this. So 3 biggest issues of this game. My apologies there. The second issue, yes, this game feels like a continuation, but it's almost too much of that way because, and hear me out, this is my logic on this, there is nothing to tell you how to use anything at the beginning of the game. It is literally, it throws you right in, and if you have not played any of the previous Arkham games at all, you have no idea what you're doing. This game is not new player friendly at all. You need to play at least one of the previous Arkham games before you play this game, or you are going to have a really hard time with the controls, because it does not teach you anything except how to use the new features in this game, the stuff that wasn't there previously. That's the only thing it teaches you. Right off the bat, it does not teach you how to grapple. It doesn't teach you how to throw the Batarang or turn on detective mode or anything. It just throws you in there and pretends you already know it, which especially because turning on detective mode is different for this one since it's a PS4 and not a PS3. They really needed to have something there. It didn't need to have a full-on tutorial, but it needed to have something. And that leads into the biggest problem with this game, and I know every one of you are going to understand this, and I'm going to take a phrase straight out of Batman comics. It's the goddamn Batmobile. From the racing to the chasing, the tank battles are actually okay. I'll give it that. The tank battles are fun. But for the majority of the Batmobile stuff, I hated it. Anytime I was forced into a scenario where I absolutely had to use the Batmobile, it was not fun. It was not exciting. It was not exhilarating. It was just piss me off angry. That was it. I felt like the Hulk. I wanted to smash my PS4 so badly. The Batmobile is insanely dumb. The Riddler missions that involve it, where he's making racetracks for you to play in, just make me want to scream. I almost wanted to quit playing. I know I've seen reviews of players that did quit playing just because of that. They never even got to finish this amazing game because of this. And I felt like this was something, honestly, as much as I anticipated wanting to see this game and play it and everything, if you could have taken another 6 months to make this better, I'd have loved that so much. And that's the biggest problem in this game. If you can get through the Batmobile stuff and focus on everything else, you're going to enjoy this game. But I wish you luck as far as the Batmobile is concerned. That is a fact right there. Now, of course, you know my opinion on when it comes to downloadable content and stuff. I've covered it in previous Zero Sum Gaming videos. But I'm not a big fan of the fact that I've spent close to $60 brand new on this game, and here comes an insane amount of downloadable content and a season pass. And it's just, it's crazy. I'm not a big fan of that kind of thing. But honestly, this game's absolutely beautiful and amazing. The voice acting is stellar, the story is amazing. The Batmobile, not so much, but it is without a shadow of a doubt one of the best Rocksteady games I've ever played. It's just brilliant. Now, of course, going into that though, and I'm going to touch base on this some, you don't absolutely have to purchase the downloadable content. Of course, there's the stuff of like, the challenge maps and the new racetracks, costume changes for a lot of the characters that you can play as, and stuff like that. And those are great and all. The key selling point on the downloadable content that you can get is the additional story packs you get on it. But even then, they don't add on too terribly much. If you're wanting the full story of everything in the Arkham series, I hate to say it, and that's one of the things I dislike, is I have to spend additional money to download this stuff so that I know for a fact I've gotten the full storyline here, because they add additional story stuff to each pack. That's just not cool there, man. Not cool. I'm just saying. It's, I really don't think you should do that. I think the downloadable content for games should be, additional stages, additional power-ups, things that make the game fun. Like the game Genie back in the day. If I wanted to make Super Mario jump off the screen and float above the whole stage, or Infinite Lives, or something like that, that's one thing. That's how I've manipulated the game. I paid for a game Genie so that I could do that. So if I want to walk around or buzz around in a new Batmobile, God forbid, or if I want to, float around town as Batman Beyond, or the Azrael Batman, or anything like that. If I want the 90s Catwoman in the purple suit, or, Tim Drake from the animated series Robin, or whatnot, I should be able... That's something that if I choose I want to get, I can get that, and it's like customizing your own Batman game at that point. I'm paying money to make the Batman game more resemblant to what I want. But for me to finish the story, and you get an ending at the end of the game, and don't get me wrong, but to get the full, hey, every single thing that happened story-wise in this game, I have to shell out a decent amount more money for that? No. I mean, why would I go out and buy a novel that claims it's, the definitive final chapter? If I got the last Harry Potter book, and it's the end of the series and everything, and then it turns out, over the next 4 months, I can spend $20 per month, or even $10 per month, we'll say $10 per month, to get an additional 2 pages that give me some more backstory of some of the stuff that happened during that book to flesh things out. That's ridiculous. Seriously. I don't pick up a book or a story or anything like that just to have it, not have the whole thing. I want to sit there from beginning to end and get, have some completion at the end. If the book itself is meant to keep on going in a story, it's like the middle or the third in a set of 7 or something, that's one thing. But if you are claiming you're the definitive finale, for God's sake, put the whole story in the game. That's what we want as players. That's what we want as gamers. Save the stuff that I'm going to pay the money for to customize the game to how I want it, but give me the story. Between that and the Batmobile, the freaking Batmobile, this game is gonna drive me crazy. Oh, welcome back, viewers. I was just catching up on some reading. I see you enjoyed watching my video. I'll tell you, the only thing crazier than me are those racetracks. Now the big question is this game worth it? Well, if you go to Amazon right now, you can get it as cheap as $17, though the downloadable content is still about $30, or an arm and a leg. That reminds me, Harley! Get me an arm and a leg! I still need to finish this game! But thank you, Jason T, for requesting this video this week. Remind me, I may need to take you out to a bar sometime. Thanks for watching.